Can you hear us, Bobby? Can you hear us in the chat?
Yeah, I'm in. Boom. On the board with another commitment, this one from Cole Brevard to the University of Texas. Brevard now makes the second commitment of the day for Texas. Brad Spence, about an hour and a half ago, committed to the Longhorns, the linebacker out of Arkansas. Now Cole Brevard, a starting defensive tackle from Purdue, the latest to pledge to the Longhorns on this busy Saturday for Texas.
Yeah, I started 23 games the last 2 years, I believe the number was for Brevard at Purdue. He started every game as a junior, in 2023, and every game this year. He missed a couple due to injury and Big Ten play. Still had 19 tackles, 1.5 sacks there, and a guy that plays 400 snaps over the ball. So, I mean, he's not going to be a huge volume sack guy or necessarily tackles guy, but again, 20-plus starts in the Big Ten. A guy who's 6'3", 333, plays over the ball, which is a major need, I believe, for the Longhorns headed into portal season. Sydir Mitchell obviously now returning. He has played 36 snaps this season. Obviously, those are over the ball for Texas, but they needed some experience and somebody to put it on the board. One of the things I like about Brevard being in this program, Bobby, is he's 4 years into college strength and conditioning. 2 years at Penn State as a 4-star recruit, couldn't break through there, transferred to Purdue, has come on, started again 23 games at Purdue, and is now a guy that has up to 30 pounds heavier than when he was a 4-star prospect coming out of Carmel, Indiana, and is a lot stronger. And a guy who's played against the Penn States of the world, Ohio States of the world, Michigan's of the world, and has played over the ball against high-level teams with NFL offensive linemen, a guy that's ready to, physically ready and experience-wise ready to come in and help the Longhorns in 2025 in a very important position.
There are a lot of thoughts here, but mine is this. I mean, Texas needs depth up front. There's just no two ways about it. We talked about it, Jerry, all going into the portal season, how Texas going to have to attack the portal. They have, and they've done it very quickly here in the last 24 hours. The third commitment, but in particular at defensive tackle, because you mentioned Sydir Mitchell and Cole Brevard now, the two bigger guys up front, 330 to 350-pound guys. And then you have guys like Alex January, a freshman that showed so well this year in limited action. Melvin Hills, a red shirt, a guy that took a red shirt this year. And then you have the three newcomers, Myron Charles, Josiah Sharma, and Justice Terry from the high school ranks. They still are going to need more beyond just Brevard, but getting Brevard allows them to be a little bit more particular, in my opinion, about the type of player they need. They absolutely needed one of those big over-the-ball defensive tackles, and that's where Brevard and Mitchell, frankly, are their kind of positions because they have that plus size up front, kind of not unlike Jermaine Lole at some level, or even Bill Norton, his role this past year for the Longhorns too.
Yeah, for sure. And look, I would say right now, if you're penciling in starters for next year, it's Alex January and Cole Brevard. And those are the two guys that have penciled. And Alex January is going to be a really good player, especially just think about year two at Texas as a defensive lineman with another spring with Kenny Baker and then time with Torrey Becton. He's going to be a really good player. The question then, Bobby, like you said, is a frontline guy as a 3-tech, I think is the next thing they're looking for to compete with Alex January for a starting role and a lot of snaps, especially early in the season while the youngsters get ready. I mean, Justice Terry, Josiah Sharma, Myron Charles, really, really good freshman class. They're still coming into University of Texas in the SEC on a team that's going to be ranked top 5 preseason in a poll more than likely. So there's a growth that comes with that. But Texas now up to 7, counting Melvin Hills, who had a pretty good redshirt year and has been kind of mentioned behind the scenes as a potentially quality rotational player. I'm not saying next year, but they like some of what they've seen early on from Melvin Hills, assuming all these guys stay. You have to assume all these guys stay. But that gives Texas 7 guys now on the interior. And a guy like Justice Terry can play a 5-tech as well. So it's kind of 6.5 is what they have until Justice Terry becomes a true 5-3. But I think they're well on their way to having a really solid group. The number now is down to 2, as long as Sadir Mitchell stays around and Melvin Hill stays around. I think it would be a frontline 3 tech to compete with January, and then maybe a guy that could do either. But they want bigger frame guys. They want 300-pound guys, Bobby.
I got to say this. It's not just to compete with they need people to compete for the rotation.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why this pickup is so big, is because and why keeping Sadir Mitchell potentially is so big as well, Jerry, because otherwise there's not even competition in the rotation for spring ball, right? I mean, you're going to be playing the 3 freshmen on second team reps potentially in spring ball. So they need to get those guys in and going, and they need guys that are a little bit older. I mean, your oldest guy coming back now is Sadir Mitchell, who's only a true junior. Alex January, a true sophomore. This is what Texas talks about when they need more quality depth, and also guys that have done it before, experience. We saw what that mattered. You look at a guy like Andrew Makuba this past year, who's had 3 years starting experience, and he immediately comes in and takes a starting role. Trey Moore, same thing. A lot of starting experience, comes in, immediately picks up a defense. Now, they can still learn as the season goes on, and they have. Both of those guys have gotten better over the year. Jermaine Lole, same thing, by the way. But you got to have those guys, get them into your system. They should be both your Spence and Brad Spence, the linebacker, as well as Cole Brevard, the defensive tackle, should be here for spring ball as well. I also want to mention this. People are asking whether or not all 3 of those defensive tackles, the high school ones, are midterm enrollees. We talked about this in a previous one. Yes, they are midterm enrollees. Question for you. What does this mean for Kenny Baker and his recruiting? I mean, he got 3 really, really talented high school guys. He's now reached into the portal almost immediately and got one of the first people they identified with Cole Brevard. We assume there are more coming. What do we think right now, what Kenny Baker's putting together?
Yeah, I think he's getting the guys he wants, right? I mean, that's the main thing, is he came in late because he came in from the NFL. He got behind in 2025 high school recruiting because he just wasn't there. He wasn't able to go see guys, evaluate everybody. Now this is his first true portal evaluation class. He's had a chance to look at all these guys, right? And so he's got both feet on the ground now is what he has. And he's putting together the rotation, the group of guys he wants to develop. So I think and in 2026 high school recruiting, he now has the full calendar to evaluate these guys, go out and see them here coming up after the season in the January and then in the spring. So this is going to be the first time where he's had a entire high school class coming up in 26 and a portal class before that to really see everybody he wants to see, build relationships in 2026 high school class. So he's got both feet underneath him now, where I think he was just in a full sprint early on when he got to Texas. But again, I think looking at it, if you could get a frontline 3 tech to compete with January, right? And then let's just say you had a Jermaine Lole type as your either or, you'd be in a really good spot going into next year suddenly. I know people are like, well, hey man, there's been a lot of guys lost. Alfred Collins, Vernon, Lole, Norton. I get it. But Alex January is going to be a good player in year 2 at Texas. He has a bright future.
Yeah, I think it's all about competing the rotation. The thing that I would say about Baker and what he's got, if he can get through this coming year with piecing some pieces together through the portal, whether it's Brevard and whoever else he might add, the coming years look more plentiful when you have a January and then Charles, Sharma, and Terry on the rise as well. I think this is the year that they need the transition. This group coming in the portal needs to be the transition. Brett, if you missed it earlier, Brad Spence is also committed to Texas. He is the linebacker out of Arkansas. He committed about an hour and a half, 2 hours before Cole Brevard did. Big pickup for the Longhorns in that regard as well. People are asking us, Jerry, is he an off-the-ball linebacker? Is he a replacement for Trey Moore? At this point, or is he a replacement for David Benda? At this point, he is more of an off-the-ball linebacker who has had some success rushing the passer. He had 4.5 sacks this year, 55 total or 54 total tackles. He is a well-rounded linebacker, but more of a what I would call a thumper. He likes to hit people and knock them down. That's where he comes from. He's originally from Klein Forest High School as well. Looked at Texas. His younger brother, actually signed with Baylor in the class of 2025. So his parents are now going to have one at Baylor and one at Texas as well. That's Brad Spence. Gerry, any other comments you want to make here? We got some questions that people are asking that I'm going to try to get to as well.
No, I think it's just a solid start for Texas, and they're getting frontline guys. They're getting starters. I mean, this is 3 players, a starter in the Big Ten, a starter in the SEC, and obviously a 2-time all-conference punter. They're getting starter-level players from power conferences. That's where you want to be if you're a blue blood in the portal. And so they're addressing their needs, and they're not addressing their needs with reaches. They're addressing their needs with Power 4 starters. And a guy in Brad Spence who has 2 years left, who I think he has a really bright future. Actually, I think he's ascending pretty quicker than people imagine.
Also, a couple comments here. One of them coming in about Texas having a GM in Brandon Harris. And this from Randy Etheridge. Why having a Brandon Harris is great because he's not game planning. He's GMing. Sorry, excuse me. One thing I would say to that is Brandon Harris doing a tremendous job, clearly recruiting going like firecracker right now, and as well as portal. I also want to give a hat tip to Chris Gilbert behind the scenes.
He's big.
He has been big in a couple of recruitments as well. He's not game planning either. He's strictly trying to work in the recruiting realm. Those two, as well as John Michael Jones. Texas has a good core group right now. And yes, Brandon Harris is the GM, but it's a core group that clearly is getting things done as I would believe it. Pat Ross asks, is this guy a legit start level guy, though, or more of a spot filler with guys we're losing? And he's talking about Cole Brevard. Gerry, this is a guy that would have been in the rotation at Texas this year had he played, in our opinion, right? I mean, we looked at the stat numbers from Pro Football Focus, 2-year starter at Clemson. He would have been at least in the rotation, maybe a better version of Bill Norton, given the size, in our opinion. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I mean, 23 starts at Purdue, and I know they weren't a good football team, but 23 starts at Purdue. He's a starter-level player. Doesn't mean he's going to start for Texas. Like somebody saying, why is Texas moving so quick? Or why aren't they being more patient? Well, I think there's 2 waves in the portal. I think you got it. I think you got, if there's some guys you zeroed in on and you really like, you got to take those guys. But look, I think even if they take 6 guys early in the portal, that still leaves 3 or 4 spots late as well. So I don't think Texas is moving too fast. I think the reality for Texas is they're getting the guys at the positions they want, and their staff is coveted early on out of the portal. So, and there's going to be 2 waves out of the portal. So I like what Texas is doing. Again, Cole Brevard, he started 23 games in the Big Ten. Does that mean he is going to play 400 snaps at Texas? No, he won't. But can he be a 200 250 snap guy and combine with what else Texas has? Yeah, I mean, look, I think Texas, I said it before on the last live with Brad Spence's command, I think Texas is trying to build a 2 deep of all Power 4 level starter defensive players. And I think they're well on their way to doing that.
I think that all they have to do is keep adding pieces because Texas, thankfully, has put themselves in this situation, Gerry, where the young guys coming up are extremely talented.
Yeah.
And so you layer on a couple of pieces here and there that are also involved. We've also mentioned Max Clare, the tight end out of Purdue. He's another target of the Longhorns, has been offered a scholarship by Texas. He is visiting A&M this weekend. We've also heard Oregon heavily involved with him, as well as Louisville and even Oklahoma looking for a tight end right now. One of the tight ends that we thought Texas might look at, and actually they were looking at, we're being told, but he went ahead and committed to Ole Miss today. That is Luke Haas out of Arkansas as well. He is the 3rd Arkansas Razorback to sign with Ole Miss in 2 days. Quite a move there.
Yeah, the defensive back there, Jalen Braxton, who was injured most of the year, committed to A&M on his visit. Didn't sign, went to Ole Miss, signed with Ole Miss.
Yeah, Ole Miss and former Texas player personnel director Billy Glasscock doing work in the portal over there. They are clearly prioritizing portal over just about anything that we can say. Hey, this is on Brad Spence. Guys, the guy has a 85-yard TD return. I'd say he's more than an off-the-ball backer, Spence, that is. Look, he may have that, but he is a thumper. That is what he does extremely, extremely well, in my opinion, and something that we need to really talk about it. This also news coming in today, and I sent this an internal text. Marshall, this is a sign of the times in college football. Marshall has opted out of the Independence Bowl against Army because they have 29 transfers to the portal.
Well, let me,
29 plus their coach left to go to Southern Miss, but 29 transfers. So now the Independence Bowl is going to be looking for a team that went 5-7 to make a bowl, because the 5-7 team is up next.
That situation's very interesting because the higher ups at Marshall got mad at Charles Huff, the head coach, who's not a head coach at Southern Miss, for engaging in other jobs, looking for other jobs. He won the conference, and they pretty much told him to go pound sand. And yes, you win a conference. If you have a max exodus of your players, it's not surprising, because the way the players perceive Marshall did their coach, whether it's real or not, that's just a situation there. That's what we're in college football now, because all those guys used to kind of be stuck. Do you want to transfer and sit out a year? No, we'll just all put our names in the portal. So have fun with your no bowl game. That's essentially what they're telling the Marshall University right now.
All right. Hey, Jerry, I want to mention this real quick, if you don't mind. We're being asked about other defensive linemen in the portal and the timing of it. We've tried to be as clear as we can. Right now, we don't know of anybody else in the portal at defensive line that Texas is definitively going after, which means to us that, and we know this, that there may be some guys after the fact that go in here in a little bit. So let's wait and see exactly what this means. One of those players that people were conjecturing about is James Thompson, a young man that started 2 years at Wisconsin. Texas is about the only SEC school, according to his agent, that has not truly reached out to or expressed interest. There's Kelby Collins, a guy from Florida that I think is visiting A&M right now. He apparently not really on the radar of the Longhorns, although one of the issues there, is Jerry mentioned at the very outset, Texas looking for 300-pound plus guys at the position right now. Collins lists at around 275. So as you're trying to figure out who all's visiting and why Texas might want one guy over another, keep in mind Texas is looking for big defensive linemen right now, especially to handle these big offensive linemen that they see in the SEC. No doubt about it.
Wilson Vasquez asked, do we think Trey Moore will stay or go?
And the answer right now is we don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's got a decision to make. I think it's clear that the productivity he's had the last half of this year, he would be welcomed back with open arms, right? At the same time, this is a young man that started now 3 years of college football, 2 at UTSA and 1 at Texas. He may have a decision to make whether or not he wants to go ahead and move on to pro football.
Yeah.
How does he fit in that role? Could he potentially look at playing an off-ball linebacker, more traditional role this coming season? All those are legitimate questions. But Trey Moore, he's having 3 sacks in the last 5 games and 3 forced fumbles.
Yeah,
he's having a strong end to his first season in Burnt Orange as of right now. Jerry, you have anything? I know this is a special report for On Texas Football on Saturday. You have anything you want to add before we let folks go on Saturday afternoon here?
No, I mean, look, 3 starter level players, an all-conference, 2-time all-conference punter. It's a great get. Brad Spence, I think, is a really good get because of his versatility and how quickly he's ascended in college football as a second-year player. He's got 2 to play as well at Texas. A guy that wanted to go to Texas out of high school, from what I remember of his recruitment coming out of Klein Forest. I went by Klein Forest. I remember Jeff Banks went by Klein Forest to see him as well. Texas really liked Brad Spence. I think it's going to mean a little extra something for him to wear that uniform for the Longhorns. And then Cole Brevard. I mean, I like a defensive line who's had 4 years in a college strength and conditioning program in the Big Ten. He's played against Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State. He's gone up against those guys. He had a sack against Ohio State this season, I believe. So I think they've got 3 really solid additions to this team. There's more to go, but this is a really good early start. And as CJ pointed out something on an earlier live stream this week, last year this time, December 16th was the first Texas portal commitment. They're 3 ahead of that pace now. So they're locating guys they really like, and they're going all out for those guys. I mean, Cole Brevard had A&M and SMU as well, visited SMU. The D-line coach at A&M, Sean Spencer, who signed him out of high school to Penn State. So the big 3 schools in state as far as NIL goes, SMU is. But Cole Brevard going to Texas, I think over those is a solid win for Texas. And Kenny Baker got a really good player over the ball, and he's getting the target the guys he wants and think fits in how he coaches and the Texas scheme. Which last year I think he was just limited on time. Now he's got both feet on the ground. That's a good thing for Texas fans.
I want to say this too. Texas brought in 4 official visitors through the portal this week. 3 of them have already committed.
Yeah,
that's pretty strong statement for Texas football. Max Clare, the lone one not to do that. That's the tight end out of Purdue. He was an all Big Ten third-team selection for Purdue. He's at A&M today. Oregon also expected to be involved, as well as Oklahoma and Louisville. There, Texas hosts Eric Singleton, the Georgia Tech wide receiver, on Monday. He's the speedster, has already seen Auburn as well as Ole Miss, we believe. Oregon could end up being involved in that one too. But look, a lot of moves right now in the college football portal. Justice Haynes is in, Quentin Joyner. There's a number of running backs right now. Will Texas look at running back as a position in the portal? We just don't know quite yet. There could be a visitor on campus right now that we're unaware of as well. We want to make sure people know that is a possibility, given just all the moving pieces going on with Texas at this time. But 3 things are for sure now. Jack Boomeister, the punter out of Utah, Cole Brevard, the defensive lineman out of Purdue, and Brad Spence, the linebacker out of Arkansas, are now all Texas Longhorns. And I've got one last thing for you to say to you, Cole Brevard. Hook 'em, buddy. Good luck in the